Steelers extended head coach Mike Tomlin's contract one season, keeping him through 2021. The team looking for a little stability after a tough year in which they not only missed the playoffs for the first time since 2013, they lost both Antonio Brown and Lev Bell, two of the best offensive weapons in football. Tomlin entering his 13th season with the Steelers. He's reached the playoffs 8 times in that span. Bart, what's your reaction to Tomlin getting one extra year?
Well, I think he's still on the hot seat. Organizations have this thing that they do with coaches where they don't want them to be lame duck coaches. It shows a lack of stability with the team, and you want them to have power. So you give them a one-year extension. So if you fire them the following year, that they'll be able to have income as they search for their new job. That's why you see when guys get fired, they go straight to television because we call it double dipping. So, I mean, I wouldn't look too much into them giving them an extension. It would have been a multiple-year extension if they really believed. I think this is a very important year for him because there was a lack of institutional control last year. When you hear all the things that come, out of that organization, whether it was Le'Veon Bell, whether it was Antonio Brown, it seemed like it was a lack of structure. I think they got rid of those guys and said, listen, we believe in you, Mike, but this is a year where you have to pull everything back together and show that you're an unquestioned leader.
Well, and it should be noted, he had 2 years on his deal, so now he has 3 years guaranteed on his deal.
Okay.
So he wasn't quite in the lame duck year, but it also wasn't a multi-year extension. So it was, to me, they were kind of trying to thread the needle on, we want to extend him so his length of contract at least goes as long as Ben Roethlisberger's does, but not tie us to him for multiple years in the future. Now, the Steelers, Jenna said it earlier, have had 3 coaches in the last 50 years. It went Chuck Noll to Bill Cowher to Mike Tomlin. It also should be noted this. Mike Tomlin has an unimpeachable resume of success. He has never had a losing season. They have made the playoffs 8 times in 12 years. If we are talking about the best coaches in the NFL, Belichick, Reed, Sean Payton, John Harbaugh, Pete Carroll, Mike Tomlin are your top 6. You can pick the order. That's not the order I would have it in, by the way. But those are your 6 guys that you know are great head coaches. Now, last year was a down year. Last year was a year, not only down year because they missed the playoffs, but because it did seem like he had kind of lost the tether on the team to a degree. The year before that, they went 13-3. They lost a terrible playoff game to the Jags, which seemed to almost be a sign of things to come for the following season. But it's not that they've had consecutive bad seasons. They had an awful ending to their season 2 years ago and then a down year by their standards. But if Mike Tomlin were to get fired, if he didn't want to go into TV, he'd be out of work about 5 minutes.
Right.
He would instantly get another job. We saw a different Super Bowl winning head coach, Mike McCarthy, get fired this offseason. He still doesn't have a job. Now, maybe he could have, maybe he turned one down, or maybe the league wasn't as high on him as I believe they would be on Tomlin. But, of course, it's a big year because every year in Pittsburgh, where Big Ben is still your quarterback, you have legitimate, not only playoff, but Super Bowl aspirations. Now you have to do it with the least talented team that you've had offensively in the last 5 seasons.
Why is he so good, CC? How has a guy like that been able to survive what a lot of people would call dysfunction within that Pittsburgh franchise for the last couple of years and be successful at doing it?
Mike Tomlin is a great motivator. He's a great communicator. Young guys buy into him. Young people want to follow him. He's dynamic. I mean, he's motivational. His speeches, man, are second to none. Like, when he speaks to a team of grown men, like, he has the ability to be able to get their attention. And when he was the defensive back coach, he was one of the great teachers that we had. When you come to work, you have a guy, you're a young player, you're trying to learn this game, you think you know something, you get someone like Mike Tomlin, they start showing you how the league works, they start teaching you about offenses, you're like, wow, I feel like I got a chance to be able to earn a living. And he's become a great leader. The guys love him, they love playing for him, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, they trust him. That's one of the great stats in all of football. 60 years or so, Pittsburgh Steelers, they got 3 coaches. It's one of the great stats that you'll ever see. So you guys might not remember this. Bart might remember it vaguely. But the last coach they had, man, they won his head. He won it every year, Bill Cowher. Yeah. Every year he was getting ready to get fired.
A Super Bowl.
And Mike Tomlin's already won one.
Yeah.
And the organization was super patient with Bill Cowher. He's one of my favorite coaches, does a great job on television, everything. But let's not forget, this is not a normal organization. If the Pittsburgh Steelers gave me a 3-year contract, you know what I'd be saying? That's a long term. That's long term. Short term is 1 or 2 years. Yeah. Long term in the business now is 3 or 4. He's got a long-term contract, and it matches up with my star quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger. So they're letting them know, because the Pittsburgh Steelers aren't into paying people off and just going home. Yeah. All right? So to me, this allows Mike to be able to regain his voice, Bart, in that locker room that becomes very important.
Well, they got to get back to Steeler football. I mean, they were last in the league in rushing the ball. They've been airing it out because of how good Ben Roethlisberger is, and as the league is changing. But it's going to be a lot on those players. You know, you think about James Conner, you think about Juju. They're going to have to step up, and they're going to see, you know, if he can coach now, because now you got to coach. Sometimes you can lean on your star players just to be great. Antonio Brown, you know, making things happen. You know, Le'Veon Bell making things happen. You think about some of those end-of-the-game plays that they made to win games when they were just better than the other person. You know, Antonio Brown making one-arm catches into double coverage. Now he's going to have to coach. This team is going to have to win, not just lean on individuals. And they're trying to get back to their way. Their secondary's been horrible. They finally decided to replace Shazier with bringing in Devin Bush. For that defense to work, they have to have an impact type of middle linebacker. You think about Ferrier, you think about Larry Foote, you think about, you know, some of the great middle linebackers that they had. You know, and they're trying to get back to their identity and understanding that it flows through the coach first. But a lot of people will argue that Mike Tomlin won a Super Bowl with Bill Cowher's players. You know, and Bill Cowher laid a lot of the groundwork for that. He's had success, but now that division is catching up with them as they've ushered out old quarterbacks. You know, you look about the new dynamic quarterbacks that's coming in, and Baker Mayfield's going to have to be dealt with. Lamar Jackson, that Ravens defense, that's a tough division to play in, and now he's going to have to do it and coach those guys up.
But so and that was a criticism of Tomlin. Not a criticism, but kind of an asterisk. Yeah, listen, they won a Super Bowl early. They went back to a Super Bowl 2 years later. It was Cowher's system, Cowher's players. So let's just look at recent history. All the Cowher guys except for Big Ben gone. Since 2015, only 2 teams in the NFL have won more games in the series, the Patriots and the Chiefs. Since 2015, only the Patriots have been to more playoff games than the Pittsburgh Steelers. And this is considered the down part of his tenure. The beginning was considered the wild success. Win a Super Bowl in year 2, go back in year 4. The last 4 years, which have been more of the struggle, they've still been a great team. This is where you are a victim of your success, where the standard of excellence is so high that 9-6-1, which is what they were last year, is considered a disaster.
There are a couple of things. One, I discredit what you're saying as far as getting credit for winning with another person's players. This is not college, all right? It's not like you on scholarship, you're out recruiting. Those players were drafted by the Pittsburgh front office. Pittsburgh's front office have drafted great players. That's why those coaches have stayed there, because their front office has really supported that. Now, and they won with defense. They didn't win with offense. If he had switched it over and was on the offense side, I've been like, okay. No, but they won with defense. The 2 things against Tomlin, the conduct of his star players, and they haven't been good defensively. Those are the 2 bad marks on a guy. He's one of 5 coaches with no losing seasons his first 12 years in the league. We said, which is the 100th season. That means he's a pretty special coach.
And those other 4 guys, Curly Lambeau's got a stadium named after him. Don Shula, some consider him the greatest coach ever. George Allen, a legend. And Marty Schottenheimer, who for him, he just had repeated playoff failures, but the regular season was extraordinary. That's an all-time list right there.
But the thing is, it's easy to win a division when you have the best quarterback in it. And he's had the best quarterback in the division probably for the last 10 years. And that's been the difference between the Steelers and the Ravens, is that the Ravens, they both had great defenses, Hall of Famers on both sides, but they've had the better quarterback, and Ben has been special when it came down to those last-minute drives.
Put some respect on Andy Dalton's name.
We got to take a break. Bart, stick around. Coming up, could a Zeke holdout derail the Cowboys season before it even starts? That's next on First Things First.